A young girl walked out of a concert, disappeared into the darkness, and never returned. That's what happened to Morgan Dana Harrington, a 20-year-old student at Virginia Tech, one night in October 2009. A night that should have been filled with music and joy, but instead turned into an unexpected tragedy. America was shocked when the image of her gray-haired father, Dan Harrington, appeared on television news sobbing, "If Morgan is out there and can hear us, please come home. If someone has Morgan, please bring her home safely." Those pleading words touched the hearts of millions, but deep down, everyone felt a growing unease. Where had Morgan gone? Who was the last person to see her? And what really happened that fateful night? On the afternoon of October 17, 2009, Morgan Harrington, a 20-year-old student at Virginia Tech, and a group of friends left their dormitory to go to Charlottesville to attend a Metallica concert, an event she had been eagerly awaiting. It was supposed to be a fun day, but it turned out to be a fateful turning point that completely changed her life and that of her family. At around 8 p.m., Morgan and her friends arrived at the John Paul Jones Arena. The atmosphere was bustling and the music was loud. During the show, Morgan suddenly left her seat to go to the restroom, but when she returned, she was refused entry because of the no re-entry rule. Over the phone, she assured her friends that she would find a way to get home. That was the last time her family heard her voice. Several witnesses later reported seeing a young woman resembling Morgan walking alone near the parking lot and along the side of the road. Some said she looked confused and panicked, but no one stopped to help. A taxi driver also reported seeing a woman walking in the dark, but her face was not clear. Morgan was not a reckless person. She was always cautious and kept in close contact with friends. But that night, her phone suddenly went dead. A few days later, her handbag, high heels, and other personal belongings were found scattered on a bridge a few miles away. The first sign that something serious had happened. Friends waited in vain all night, searching everywhere, but all efforts were met with silence. When the concert ended and Morgan still hadn't appeared, they initially thought she might have taken a ride back to school or met someone she knew. But concern soon grew into fear. The next morning, Morgan's family officially reported the matter to the police. The local community immediately joined hands to search for her, with the young girl's image appearing densely on electric poles, bulletin boards, and the media. But all efforts were in vain. No one knew where Morgan had gone, who she had met, or what had happened that fateful night. There was only an eerie silence and a growing unease in the hearts of those waiting for her return. In the early days after Morgan Harrington went missing, hope was not completely extinguished in the hearts of family and friends. Everyone believed that the young girl might have simply lost her way, her phone battery died, or had some other problem but was still safe. But as the days passed without any trace, that fragile belief gradually became submerged by extreme fear. Then on the morning of January 26, 2010, nearly 3 months after that fateful night, a heartbreaking turn occurred. An Albemarle County farmer, while checking the fence and pasture on his Anchorage farm, accidentally discovered a human skeleton lying quietly under some low bushes. It was a deserted field, about 10 miles from where Morgan went missing, a place so remote that few people visited. Immediately, he called 911, his voice barely concealing the horror. "I think I just found human remains. Please send someone here right now." Less than 30 minutes later, the investigation team, forensics and police were on the scene, cordoning off the entire area. The sight before them was deafening. In the middle of an empty field were nearly naked remains, torn clothes, a few pieces of fabric, and other items that had been damaged by weeks of rain, wind, and nature. Forensic experts quickly determined that the body was a woman. Although there were very few physical traces left, The initial characteristics matched the disappearance of Morgan Harrington that had been reported in the media for a long time. The Harrington family was notified, and when the DNA results confirmed the worst, the last hope was lost. Morgan had been found, but not alive. The grief is overwhelming as her parents, who have always believed that their daughter would return, are forced to confront the harsh truth. But the case does not end there. This discovery is just the beginning of a long and arduous journey to find justice. Who brought Morgan to that desolate place? What happened in her final hours? And why did this haunting go unnoticed for months? The answers are still waiting to be revealed. The scene where Morgan Harrington's body was found was a desolate grass field, far from residential areas and major roads, a location so remote that it seemed to have been deliberately chosen. The investigation team found no obvious signs of a struggle, no signs of a motor vehicle or suspicious objects. The only thing left was a skeleton lying alone, surrounded by dry leaves and weeds, as if time and nature had deliberately concealed the crime. Forensics carefully examined every small detail. Through examination, they determined that the body was that of a young woman, matching the description of Morgan Harrington. Bone analysis showed that the victim had died several weeks ago, consistent with the time of her disappearance. In particular, some injuries on the skeleton showed strong external impact, a sign of violence before death. However, due to the severe decomposition of the body, determining the exact cause of death became extremely difficult. One detail that caught investigators' attention was the location of the body. It wasn't on any well-trodden route, nor was it a random destination. Someone had deliberately brought Morgan here, away from the lights, away from human eyes. While no weapon or obvious physical evidence was found at the scene, the forensic team had collected some biological samples that had remained, opening up the possibility of DNA traces. These small clues laid the foundation for the arduous journey ahead. After Morgan Harrington's body was found, the investigation officially entered a tense and challenging phase. With very little physical evidence, no specific witnesses, and a crime scene that left almost no clear traces, the police force knew they were facing a complex case that required patience, caution, and determination. The first step was to screen everyone who had been at the Metallica concert that day. Tens of thousands of people attended, making the screening process extremely difficult. However, thanks to the security camera system around the stadium area and the ticket sales list, they gradually narrowed down the scope of the investigation. Witnesses who had seen Morgan outside the concert area were also thoroughly questioned. Some people said they had seen the young girl walking alone, looking confused and panicked. But no one could clearly remember her face or identify anyone who was with her at the time. The deeper the investigation, the more vague the clues became, and the case was at risk of falling into a deadlock. However, a surprising turn of events occurred when the investigation team analyzed the DNA collected from the scene and compared it with the National Crime Database. Although the sample collected was extremely small, the results showed a match with the DNA of a suspect involved in a sexual assault that occurred in 2005 in Fairfax, Virginia. Unfortunately, no one was arrested at that time, so the true identity of the suspect remains a mystery. Not willing to let the case sink into oblivion, the police expanded the scope of the investigation into other areas and conducted a thorough review of the records of subjects with criminal records related to acts of assault and harassment of women. It was during this process that the name Jesse Matthew Jr. began to attract the attention of the authorities. Jesse is a local hospital worker living in Charlottesville. His gentle exterior hides a scandalous past. Jesse was accused of multiple sexual assaults while he was a college student. Although he was never formally charged due to lack of evidence, the accusations were enough to put him on the police's radar. With extreme caution, the police approached Jesse Matthew discreetly and brought him in for questioning as a witness. At first, Jesse was quite cooperative, but as the conversation turned to the night of Morgan's disappearance, confusion and uncertainty began to show on his face. Jesse claimed that he did not know the victim and was definitely not near the scene that night. However, when comparing his statement with the location data of his phone and images from the camera system, the police quickly discovered inconsistencies in his words. Sensing signs of suspicion, the investigators continued to summon Jesse Matthew once more. This time they dug deeper into his daily routine, past relationships and places he frequented. Not stopping there, the investigators proactively revealed that they had collected a DNA sample from another past attack, and it matched the DNA they had in hand. The psychological pressure was mounting rapidly. Jesse kept changing his story, his eyes wavered, his voice trembled, and he repeatedly dodged questions about the night of the murder. Finally, after several tense hours, he excused himself, claiming he was feeling unwell. Just hours after that interrogation, Jesse Matthews suddenly disappeared from his residence. He left behind his job, his car, and his phone, clear signs of his intention to flee. Police immediately issued a nationwide warrant for his arrest. Within days, Jesse was arrested in Galveston, Texas, while hiding quietly on a deserted beach. After being extradited to Virginia, Jesse Matthew was formally charged with kidnapping and murder. A search of his residence and car yielded additional biological evidence, including DNA that matched the Morgan Harrington case. But the most shocking thing was that the forensic results showed that this same DNA also linked Jesse to another case that happened in 2014. Hannah Graham, another University of Virginia student who went missing and was murdered. The connection between the two cases shocked the public. For the first time, the police found an important link connecting two heartbreaking tragedies with the same single suspect. The legal case was quickly completed with close coordination between investigative agencies, forensic experts, and the federal legal system. All the evidence from DNA, witness statements, escape behavior, and criminal past created a tight legal siege, closing in on Jesse Matthew. The arrest of Jesse Matthew not only brought justice to Morgan Harrington and Hannah Graham, but also served as a profound warning about the potential danger of criminals who disguise themselves as kind and gentle. People who few expected to hide an unimaginable, terrifying darkness inside them. The trial of Jesse Matthew Jr. attracted special attention from the public and the media. From early morning, hundreds of people lined up outside the courthouse in Charlottesville to watch a case that has haunted the community for many years. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was heavy and tense. All eyes were on the man in the dock, the man accused of taking the lives of Morgan Harrington and Hannah Graham. The prosecutor opened by reenacting the entire crime scene, from the matching DNA evidence to the defendant's unusual escape. Images of Morgan and Hannah, two young girls with bright futures cut short in the blink of an eye, were shown, silencing the entire audience. Forensic experts, investigators, and witnesses took turns testifying, each detail tightly strung together to paint a gruesome picture of the crime. The defense tried to argue that there were no eyewitnesses, that the DNA sample could have been contaminated, and that Jesse Matthews' flight was a panic attack. However, these arguments were quickly refuted by the consistent and undeniable evidence. The moment that brought the courtroom to a standstill was when Morgan's parents took the stand. Dan Harrington, his voice trembling but determined, described the pain and loss his family had suffered, a pain that could never be replaced. The heartfelt sharing brought many to tears. After several days of trial, the jury quickly returned its verdict. Jesse Matthew was found guilty of both crimes. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole, the maximum sentence possible. He emphasized that the defendant's actions were cruel, inhumane, and a serious threat to society. The verdict was final. Justice had been served. Morgan Harrington's death has left an indelible scar on the hearts of her family, friends, and the entire Virginia community. The pain is not only felt by her loved ones, but also serves as a grim reminder of the fragility of personal security, something we sometimes easily take for granted. Morgan was unable to return to college, to the unfulfilled dreams, and to the simple moments she should have enjoyed. But her story is about more than loss. It raises profound questions about our responsibility to recognize and respond to signs of danger, even the smallest ones. We often think of tragedy as happening far away, to other people. But in reality, a moment of inattention, a look of indifference, or a silent silence can pave the way for evil. Therefore, observing, listening, and intervening at the right time, even with strangers, is always a humanitarian duty that cannot be overlooked. Morgan's story also emphasizes the importance of strict security regulations, the application of technology and investigations, and above all, the consensus between the law and the community to prevent similar tragedies. And then the final question remains, for all of us, if it were you, if it were me, what would we do when faced with unusual signs? Could a small action today save a life tomorrow?